Good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I apologize for a little bit of confusion earlier, but glad we could get started here. My name is Matthew Wagner. I'm the Director of Communication and Legislation for Pennsylvanians for Right to Work. We're going to go over a couple things this evening. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Pennsylvanians for Right to Work, who we are, and what we're all about. Many of you are familiar with Pennsylvanians for Right to Work, but want to familiarize you with those of you who are not. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the right to work issue, what it's all about, and how we frame the argument. I'm going to give you an update on the bills that we currently have in the legislature, where they're at, and that kind of thing. I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing to move the legislation forward and how you can help with that effort. And if there's any questions at that point, we'll address those. You will see down your the box there's a place where you can type those in. We'll address those at the end. So with that, we'll get started. Pennsylvanians for Right to Work is a non-profit organization, so we don't get the benefit of the unions where we get to tell people how much they give us and when. We rely solely on the generosity of those who believe in freedom and liberty, and the people give to us solely out of the goodness of their heart, and we rely on those and volunteers to run our organization. Unlike other organizations who talk about a variety of issues, our sole focus here is the right to work issue, and I think that's a huge advantage for us. Unlike other organizations that talk about right to work one day and another issue the next day and the third issue the next day, we get to focus solely on right to work every day. So, for example, there's organizations out there that last year were opposing some of the legislators who co-sponsored right to work legislation last year and are co-sponsoring it again this year because those legislators are against some of their other issues. And to me, it creates a huge conflict. Whereas right to work, our sole focus is the right to work issue, and that's all that we're focused on as an organization. And I think that's one of the reasons that we as an organization and our PAC is so successful. Last year, the legislators that co-sponsored right to work all won re-election. They were all undefeated last year. So that's something that we're very proud of, and that's something that we can take back to the legislature now. As we're lobbying and talking to them, that's something that we can hang our hats on, and I think that that's something that part of the reason for that is because our focus has been solely on right to work. So that's something to be proud of. I'm going to talk about right to work issue, the right to work issue itself. And I think something that gets lost sometimes is the right to work issue is not an anti-union issue. Remember, counterparts go out there and try to make this about unions, and that's not our goal. That's not what we're all about. We are about freedom and liberty and making this about the issue of right to work. We want to make sure people understand that they have a choice to join a union or not. Some of the other organizations out there want to talk about unions being violent, being racist, being bad for people, and that may or may not be true. We'll leave that to individuals to decide for themselves. We focus on the right to work issue itself. And the way I frame the argument is very simple. I ask individuals, do you know people who are in a union? Whether it's a teacher or a nurse or an electrician, a plumber, or a carpenter, whatever the case may be. And invariably they say yes. And I ask that individual, I say, do you think the person that you know who's in a union has the ability to make decisions for themselves? Are they able to purchase a car? Would they be able to compare car X and car Y, the cost of each of the cars and the benefits of each of the cars, and make an intelligent, educated decision about each of the cars? And invariably they say yes. I say, well, that's all right to work really is about. It's about comparing and contrasting the benefits and costs of being in a union versus not being in a union. And that's what right to work is all about. And some will say that right to work is about lowering wages, and that's not at all the case. In fact, what I'd like to bring up is the fact that 7 out of 10 states that have adopted right to work legislation are in the category of the highest wage earning states in Pennsylvania. The other interesting fact is Texas is, when you compare Texas to other states, their per capita income was about $37,000 last year. Compare that to New York, and when you look at what that purchased in New York, it purchased almost $49,700 when you adjusted for inflation and cost of living and that kind of thing. In fact, after you adjusted for inflation, of the 22 states in 2007 that were right-to-work states, there were only 3 that were in the bottom 15 in the country. So this argument that somehow right-to-work doesn't help individuals and lowers wages is just entirely not true. And obviously we know it's good for business. CNBC did a study just last year in which it ranked the businesses, the best states to do business in, and 9 of the 10 best states to do business in were all right-to-work states, and that's no accident. In fact, Indiana passed right-to-work legislation just last year. Beginning of February was their 1-year anniversary, and in just that 1 year, 91 companies have expressed an interest in coming to do business in Indiana. And of those 91, 39 have already signed contracts. Those 39 companies are bringing 4,500 jobs to Indiana, and it's going to generate over $1.6 billion of revenue. So I ask you, why our legislature wouldn't want that kind of revenue in Pennsylvania? There's no reason for it. There's no reason that we can't have that kind of revenue in Pennsylvania. We are moving further and further down the list of states that businesses want to come to as other states pass right to work. And the longer we wait, the further we move down that list. We need to get moving on this now. We're going to keep getting passed by. The other thing I want to bring up while we're talking about the right to work issue is the position of our governor. He's already stated that when this comes to his desk, he'll sign it. Now that's an interesting position to take. It's the same position that Governor Snyder took, the governor of Michigan, before right to work became an issue in his state last year. And some have come out and said they wish he would take a more active leadership role in the right to work issue. And we certainly welcome to do that at any time, but I don't know that trying to bully him and pressure him is the way to get him to do that. It's our job to get it to his desk so that he will sign it. And that's what we're working on doing, that by working with the House and the Senate to get it through to get it through and get it to his desk, and that's what we're working on now to get that done. Which brings me to talk about the bills themselves. We have 7 bills that we're currently monitoring and actively lobbying for. The first 5 bills are the right to work bills themselves. House Bill 50 was the bill that Representative Metcalf introduced. He's the primary sponsor of that bill. That's the umbrella bill, the basic bill, right to work bill. House Bill 51 is the bill that Representative Rapp is the primary sponsor of. That bill will introduce right to work for public school employees. House Bill 52 then is the bill that Representative Fred Keller is the primary sponsor of, and that would allow state employees to have a freedom of choice when it comes to whether or not they would join a union. The 4th bill then is the bill that Representative Cox has introduced. It's House Bill 53. That deals specifically with local government employees and giving them the option of whether or not to join a union. The 5th bill in the series then is House Bill 54, and that bill is the bill that Representative Knowles has introduced, and that deals specifically with the private sector employees. So 50 is the umbrella bill, and then 51 to 54 deal specifically with specific sectors of employees and freeing them of compulsory unionism. The 6th bill that we're actively supporting and lobbying for is House Bill 250. It's the bill that Representative Bloom is the primary sponsor of. Basically, what that bill does, currently under union contracts, the unions have in there what they call an opt-out clause. Basically, what that says is that even once right to work becomes law, the union members will only have a 15-day window at the end of the union contract in which they can get out of their contract. They can get out of the union, and those union contracts can run years and years. In fact, one of the things that the unions in Michigan are doing right now is they're trying to renegotiate the contracts that the union members are in, to extend those contracts so that their members are stuck in them even longer. What Representative Bloom's bill would do would say that union members can get out of their contracts at any time. It gives them a broader window to get out of the contracts. The 7th bill then is the bill that Representative Cutler and Emmerich have introduced, or that they're the primary sponsor of. What that bill does is it eliminates the state as a go-between between the public employees and the state. Currently, in Pennsylvania, the state is acting as a collection agency for the unions. The state collects the dues from the public employees and passes those dues on to the union. So you as a taxpayer are paying for the state to collect that money and pass those dues on to the union. Representative Cutler and Emmerich's bill would cut out the state as the middleman, and the public employee would have to essentially write a check once a month to the union directly. So those are the 7 bills that we are actively supporting currently. We are currently soliciting co-sponsors for those bills. We have a number of legislators that are on all the bills. Some are on some of them, but not others. All told, I think we have about 40, not quite 40 legislators that are on at least one or more of the bills, and we're still working on growing that list, still making calls, stopping by, visiting, but we encourage any one of you to pick up the phone, make drop an email, stop by, do whatever you can to encourage your individual representative to sign on to the bills. If you want to know where your legislator stands, whether or not he or she is signed on to the bill, feel free to drop us an email. We'd be happy to let you know. We have a spreadsheet where we keep track of that. None of these bills have actually been officially introduced yet. They're in the process of collecting co-sponsors now, but they haven't been introduced, so you can't go on and look at the list of co-sponsors. It's not on the internet yet, but we have a list that we keep. So if you need to know where your individual representative stands, let me know. I'd be more than happy to give you that information and let you know about any conversations that I've had with them, as long as there's not any confidential information. I'd be happy to share that with you. The last item I wanted to talk to you about is related to that, just some action items, some things that maybe you can do to help us out to move the legislation forward. Obviously, with the legislation passing in Michigan, there's a lot of momentum right now on right to work. There's a lot of interest in it. There's a lot of movement right now, and I think we need to capitalize on that. We're going to be doing some things coming up here to capitalize on that, but we need to keep that momentum going. One of the things that I'm hearing as I'm talking to the legislators is that they don't hear about this issue from their constituents very often. It's not like gun control or abortion or the quote-unquote hot button issues that people write or call about on a regular, ongoing basis. So it's one of those out of sight, out of mind kind of things. So we need to keep the pressure on, and we do that by calling them, writing them, emailing them, Facebooking them, whatever the case may be, letting them know that if they've signed on to the bills, we appreciate their support of the issue, and we will remember that next year when they're up for re-election, and we'll support them. But at the same time, if they are not supportive of the issue, we're going to remember that as well, and we're going to keep that in mind next year at the same time. But we also need to keep active in the public eye as well. That means writing letters to the editor, 30 seconds into our local newspaper, op-eds, anything like that that you can do to increase public knowledge and public awareness. Spreading the word, increasing knowledge is the key to anything like this. There's a lot of misinformation out there that we need to correct. The other thing I will say about that is we are always available here at Pennsylvania's Right to Work for speaking engagements. So whether it's a live speaking engagement or whatever the case may be, whether it's myself or one of our board members or even one of the legislators who is active and supportive on this issue, love the opportunity to come out and do a presentation about right to work, talk about what right to work means, what it's about, why it's important, and give an update on the bills, on the legislation, and what people can do to help. So those of you, I'm sure all of you are active in a in many conservative organizations, whether it's a 9/12 group, a Tea Party group, Patriot group, whatever the case may be. And I know many of those groups are often looking for people to come in and do speaking engagements. More than happy. We would love the opportunity to come out and do a presentation on what right to work means, what it's about. Please reach out to me. You all have my contact information. Reach out to me on Facebook. You have our Twitter address, Twitter handle. Let me know. Make arrangements for somebody to come out and do a presentation. The last thing I will say is, even though it's only March of 2013, we are only a year away from 2014 elections. So as you are talking to people, if there are individuals who are considering next year's election cycle, who are strong supporters of right to work, please have them reach out to us. We would love to talk to them and see if there's some things that we can do to educate them and to help them, and see if we can help each other going forward. At this point, that's all I have for tonight. I don't see any comments or questions. Let me see here once. No, I don't. I don't see any comments or questions, so I must have made everything clear as mud. But if you want to reach out to me privately, you can always email me. It's mwagner@pa right to work. Oh, I do have a question here about sample editorials. That's something that we are working on. We were working on revamping our website to include some sample editorials. I do have some. Carolyn, I will email you a sample one that I have. Get that to you. As far as that goes, if that would help, if that'll help you. But we're going to have some other samples up on the website probably in the next week and a half. We'll have a whole section of the website that's devoted specifically to sample editorials, letters to the editor, scripts for calling your representatives, all that kind of good stuff. Bob is asking about getting the word out. Similar answer, I guess. We're going to have a whole section of the website that's dedicated to that kind of thing, scripts and sample letters to the editor and op-eds and that kind of thing, that are tools for you to use, ideas, that kind of thing. If you have other suggestions of things that you think that would be helpful to you, I'm not arrogant or stupid enough to think I have all the answers. So if you come to me and say, Matt, it would be helpful to me if you could come up with X, Y, or Z, let me know, and I will figure out a way to get it to you, and be more than happy to do that. Any other thoughts, comments? Anybody but Carolyn have any snide remarks? Bob says we need to reach out to union members that want out. There's a lot of union members that want out. The statistics show 40% of union members believe in right to work, and the ones that don't, a lot of them it's because they don't understand it, because 2 and 3 of them don't think they're getting value for their dollars, um, for their union dues. So the you know there's I haven't figured out a way to reach out specifically to union members that want out. Bob, if you have suggestions in that regard, I'd be more than happy to hear them. Um, but hopefully the overall outreach will get to the union members as well. It's funny, and I always try to separate in my talks and when I'm talking to people, how I try to separate union members from union bosses, because even when I'm talking to legislators, they tell me all the time that when they talk to their constituents will tell them, listen, you might go by my house and see your opponent's sign in my yard, because union bosses go by and see them and they check that kind of thing, but I'm voting for you. So the union bosses don't have nearly the power that in the voting booth that they used to have. But unfortunately, because of the nature of compulsory unionism, they have the power of dollars. Bob talks again about showing them how to deauthorize and defund them. Yeah, that's a big part of it, and that's something that we're working on, figuring out a way to get that information to them. The problem continues to be that these union, I say guys, but I don't mean to be sexist. These union members, they're like you and I. They have jobs, they have kids. Their kids have soccer, basketball, baseball, football. They have lives. They don't, they can't spend. They don't want to spend a whole lot of time dealing with this stuff, and they're scared to death that if they start going after the union bosses, they're going to end up losing their job. So it's a tough road for them. It's a tough line for them to kind of toe, and but we're working on trying to help them to do that. Commonwealth Foundation has done a good job with their free to teach, doing some stuff with that. We're continuing to work with them on that. But yeah, I mean, that's something that, again, Bob, if you have suggestions on how to do that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. Shoot me an email, or reach out to us, and more than happy to listen. Any ideas or thoughts you have along those lines. But again, I appreciate you guys jumping on. I apologize for the issues this evening. I was having some technical problems there, but I'm glad that you all were able to get on. We're going to try to make this a regular occurrence. I know how busy you all are, so I will be cognizant of that, and we'll make sure we're doing these when it's appropriate and not wasting of your time. But I hope you all found this helpful and beneficial. Thank you again for your time this evening, and God bless.